We're the Cogill family and we have two small kids. Our son Zach is 6 years old and our daughter Kacey is almost 3. We really try to invite Jesus into our home every day through times of prayer, reading Bible stories, and even sharing in times of worship together. But something that we haven't done a lot of is times of communion. And we've done it every now and then, but it always seemed like it was a little too deep for them to understand, and often they would just be staring back at us with these blank expressions, as we tried our best to explain to them what communion is really all about. I mean, half the time Kacey would be jabbering on about something completely off topic, and Zachary would be eyeing out his Lego creations or his toys in the background. And Shane, I think he really tried to make it as if he was really with us, but we could just tell he wasn't. And that whole experience for us just made it feel weird, and I think a lot of the times we just felt, well, this is not really working, let's leave it for another day or whatever.
So after watching Pastor Jacques and Gail do communion with their children, who are about the same age as our kids, we realized that our approach to doing communion with our children may have been somewhat a little bit boring for them and not necessarily on their level. So we wanted to make it more interactive and fun for them as well,
So there's 3 things that really stood out to us from their approach of doing communion with their kids. And the first thing is debunking this whole idea that it needs to be perfect. So I'm somewhat of a perfectionist, if I need to be honest, and I like things to go a certain way, and if they don't go that way, then it really makes me feel weird, and I feel like there's no point in doing it if it can't be perfect. But just by observing them and realizing they're just a normal family, just like every other family, and even they experience imperfect moments, even in communion. And the fact that even though they experience those moments, they still push on and they still just do it. That really changed my whole perspective on it. So it's not so much about having this perfect communion moment. It's more about inviting Jesus into your home, into the moment, and making him part of it, even if it's chaos.
Well, for me as a child, growing up in a Christian home, and maybe some of you can relate to this, I saw taking communion or communion as something that is very serious and deep that Christian adults do, I knew that taking communion was about remembering what Jesus has done for us on the cross. But to be honest, I enjoyed the crackers and the juice a lot more. And because my dad is a pastor, I had some benefits there where I could have some of the leftovers after the service, and that was like awesome for me and kind of like the most exciting part about taking communion. But having intimate times where it does maybe feel a little bit more serious or deep is not wrong, and sometimes it will be like that, for yourself or as in a couple, it might be like that, and that's fine. But in a family setting where you have small children, or even if they are a little bit bigger, you can adapt your time or your family time of communion to be more interactive, fun, and more of a celebration of what Jesus has done for us. And so observing how Pastor Jacques and Gail do it with their children at home, and they start by saying, let's celebrate communion together. And with that kind of approach, it changes the whole atmosphere, and it brings in a sense of excitement.
Yeah, the kids get excited about it, which is awesome.
The second thing that really stood out for us was consistency.
Yeah.
And at first I thought, sure, like, wow, how do you do that, like every day? But I think that's because of how we grew up. In church, usually we would just have it once a month at church, not really in your own home. But there's nothing wrong with that, obviously. It's just how we did it back in the day, and things have changed since then, And also, children weren't always included in communion until a certain age, or until they could better understand it, or something like that,
Yeah. And there's no real rule in the Bible saying, we should only take communion at a certain time, or we should only take it once a month. There's nothing like that. So, for us as parents, we would really want our kids to be part of that celebration as much as possible, and for them to grow in the truth of what Jesus has done for them. So, for us doing it daily is actually just awesome. Why wouldn't we want to do that every day? The third thing that really stood out for us was the simplicity of it. I think us as believers, we can very often overcomplicate stuff about our faith, And I think we also think that the really powerful stuff is in the deep theological hidden secrets, in the Bible. And I'm not saying that there's not power there. There is definitely, the whole Bible is powerful, but I just think we tend to get the order of things wrong sometimes, We want to go after the deep truths and the deep revelations before we've even gotten the basics right, and I think we realized we were trying to explain to our kids what communion was about, on our level and in our attempt to make it perfect. But by doing that, we were kind of excluding them and not making it enjoyable for them, and they didn't really want to be part of it. So by keeping it simple, keeping it really easy for them to understand, has really made it possible to include them, and now they want to be part of it.
I think now that we've adopted this way of doing communion together as a family, it's really changed the meaning of communion for us. It's really made it become more alive and real for us as a family, And we find that the kids, they've learned so fast, they've learned so quickly. They're actually the first to remind us nowadays that, hey, we need to take communion,
Yeah, very quick to remind us. Sometimes it's the first thing as they open their eyes, they're like, listen, we haven't done communion. And I'm like, okay, we'll get there. The day has just started. But they're excited about it. So we would just really like to encourage other families to start to do the basic things in your home. Even if it doesn't feel powerful, it seems too basic, just start doing it. And, from our testimony today, we can really say that we've seen real fruit of it. It's been awesome to see that our kids are starting to be interested. They're getting interested in what communion is about, and now they're starting to ask questions about it. They're trying to comprehend, they're trying to understand, and it's been awesome for them to do it in their own way and not us trying to kind of force some sort of explanation upon them. Now they're starting to realize it for themselves, and they're on this kind of journey of discovery, which is amazing to see. So we would really encourage you, just stick to the basics at first. Start to do these things in your home. Start to pray with your family. Start to do communion together. Start to read Bible stories together. And even if you've got kids that are older, it's been quite refreshing for even us. Doing it in this really simple way has been refreshing for us. Just to realize, hey man, listen, it is simple. It's not this super complicated thing, and it's actually brought a lot of meaning to us in just doing it in the simple way. So, we even find that even sometimes in the Bible stories, the children's Bible stories, we get an amazing revelation out of it, and it's really on their level. So, it's got nothing to do with fancy words. It's got nothing to do with high level stuff. If you understand the basics of the gospel, you'll realize that even though it's simple, it doesn't mean it's not powerful. Do these things in your home, implement them in your household, and I can promise you God is going to do something powerful in your family. Bless you. It was a little too deep for them to understand, and I lost it there. I just lost it. Let's just restart.
I hope you enjoy our video, guys.